Well, I think that when we're talking to our dealers and getting feedback from them about all in ceiling versus, on the floor, in the wall, ear level versus above you, and how to mix that up, we've, yes, the ideal situation is to have your typical bed, your 5.1 or your 7.1 all ear level, and then just have the Atmos or the DTS X theaters in the ceiling where they should be. But obviously we recognize, and especially in the where we all play in the custom sort of integration channel, dealers and customers are used to having speakers in their ceiling, and that's just they go away. They're architecturally designed now. It's a clean way of doing it. When we talk to dealers about it, we obviously recommend the ideal way, but if you can't do that, if you can at least maybe put the left, center, right in those, your primary channels you can get the most information from most of the time, get those at ear level or close to it, then that's still better than having everything in the ceiling. But there are going to be cases where everything has to go in the ceiling, and so is the trade-off. You don't have Atmos at all just because you don't want to put everything in the ceiling, or you at least have Atmos and those channels are in the ceiling, but they're at least in the right spot, and you're still going to get some variation because of, there's information that's only going to come out of these channels, and they're at least in the right spot, and then the surrounds and the front, left, and right. It's dealers are going to do it that way, and that's that's just going to have to happen. There are some new speakers that are in wall now from certain manufacturers that also have the Atmos enabled built into the in wall, so you can kind of get two out of one one package. It still goes away a little bit because it's in the wall,
right?
But it's in ceiling is by far what the typical application of most of surround 5 point, even going back to just regular 5.1, which obviously that wasn't always the right way to put left, center, right, and surrounds all in the ceiling, but dealers have been doing that for years and years and years, just because there are certain things you have to do to at least give the customer a surround sound experience and make it architecturally pleasing and pleasing with all the rest of the family. So.
But isn't that where some of the room correction comes into play as far as analysis and phase shifting and whatnot?
Yeah.
So with our processor working with Dirac, it's utilizing the onboard room correction. It's going to understand that there's where the speakers are actually coming from to a certain degree, and then work within that structure. So and that's also a big advantage for I think we all have something to that degree.
Very good point. Yeah.
What about?
This, frankly, is my strongest opinion of this whole process, and that's because after I just recently left my sales position. I was Western Regional Sales Manager for Paradigm and Anthem for many years, and just recently transitioned into training and sales communication. On the West Coast, there are very few multi-use rooms that have 6 solid surfaces. At best, you have a front wall, a floor, and some kind of a ceiling. Often you don't have a back wall or side walls. You have a glass, this is all glass, that's open to the hallway, the loft, the kitchen, whatever, and that's open to whatever. So you have no walls, or very few walls to work with. So God bless Dolby and DTS, they've helped us sell more speakers over the years, and I love that. I think they've gotten a little cocky in assuming that everybody is just going to have a wall and walls to put these side speakers in. What my dealers have told me is if I can't utilize some sort of a ceiling-based system, I'm just putting in a 7.1 and calling it a day. If they're telling me that it's a waste of money to put 4 more speakers in there into a 7.1 system or a 5.1 system, then my customers are just going to simply back down to a 5.1 or a 7.1 system. I didn't get to hear the Cedia demo, which I heard was really good at Golden Ear, that was convincing. There's a dealer in Vancouver, Washington, that has a ceiling-based system, which I have not heard yet. I'm going to hear my own system probably in about a month. Mine is almost done. I've got glass walls on one side of my family room and fireplace on the left side and no back wall. So it's an amazing front 3-stage and an amazing array of 8 ceiling speakers 4 of which are angled speakers, which angle at a 30-degree angle, and I'm going to play with bouncing either. I think if I aim it directly into the room, it's going to be too tight. So I'm thinking about angling them away from the listening position and bouncing them down the windows and the fireplace. So I'll at least get some sort of semblance of reflection off the walls to simulate some kind of side speakers. And then I'll have the direct overhead 4 that should, they'll do their job just fine, but it's the sides that I'm concerned about. So that's sort of a testing ground for me, and our company is trying to figure out how to best implement an all-ceiling system, because in many homes that's really the only option. I think the simplest audio experience needs to be demoed. I mean, the industry the audio industry is finally, I think, and we're not repeating your question, by the way, sorry.
That's all right.
You asked if this needs to be demoed and how they should approach it with a customer. I think everything needs to be demoed. You create a more enthusiastic customer when you do it right. You increase repeat and upgrade sales when you do it right. You close higher ticket levels when you do it right. And you turn those people, a certain percentage of those people, from people who listen to background music, they love music, but it's background, it's in their earbuds off of a low bit rate MP3. And when you give somebody that aha moment in your store or in your showroom, that they haven't heard it before like that, and now all of a sudden they've got a new passion to add to their motorcycles and their mountain bikes and their snowboards and all the other things that we compete with for discretionary income. You create that aha moment, and I think everybody who has a passion for audio in this business had an aha moment at some point in their lives when they went from listening to their transistor radio, my age, doing your school work on your desk, at home, to being a rabid consumer of good sounding music and loving it and making that a focal point in your home entertainment system in your home with your family. So that being said, yeah, you need to, Dolby Atmos, it's kind of like automation in a way. If you can't get someone to touch a pad, you can sell automation by talking about it, but you'll close a lot more people, and especially wives who are sort of doubting Thomases when they finally get that thing and they go, oh, I can turn off the whole downstairs that the kids forgot to turn off by doing that? Okay, yeah, I want that. I can unlock the garage from whatever, So it's the Dolby experience. I remember the first time, and I still have a handful of Dolby Atmos experiences, not a ton of them. And the first really, really good experience was on a bouncing system in a room not unlike this. It had coffered ceilings. It was an office, actually. And it was set up really, really well. And I heard these three-dimensional objects, or these objects in three-dimensional space in front of me. And right over my head. Not kind of just this not weird, but this sort of vague thing. It was an object, that leaf, circling over my head. And I'd never heard anything like that. And then that engine, I don't know if it's a Grand Prix car or an F1 car, it's right there in front of you, not in front of the speakers over there. It was like right there in front of me. And I'm like, okay, this is sellable. This would convince me to buck up and buy some more speakers. Again, with the limitations of what you can do with a room. It behooves a dealer to always demonstrate the best experience they can put together. And then you work, like you were saying, then you work with the compromises are, well, we can't do that, but we want to do this, so we'll have to do it this way. And you back off on whatever parts don't fit into their lifestyle.
Anecdotally, I'm hearing from dealers. I'm primarily on phones and actually working directly with folks who are actually doing the installs. So they find the experience quite well. It really changes their perspective on what audio can be, because it becomes an immersive experience. they develop a picture, auditory picture, if you will, of what we see in three-dimensional space, but it's actually in your mind, in what you're hearing. So it really brings out what you're capturing on the screen, and it articulates that experience, I think. You know, people are really excited about those installs that actually do go in. As far as the sales aspect, I think that it comes back to what Rob was saying, and having the dealer able to show that experience, the customer's just going to be really excited about it and wanting to purchase that. And it's once they actually experience that a really articulate three-dimensional sound, it ends up being I want that. Let's go ahead and do that.
We've had instances where trying to repurpose, like, so changing a room that was a 5.1 or a 7.1 traditional, and you know, getting Atmos out of that. You know, if there's, we've had dealers that will repurpose like the surround speakers, because there's such flexibility in Atmos and DTSX layout where we can place, those speakers don't have to be, like with surround back, they really need to be behind you, and that's, you know, that's a very specific placement. Because of the flexibility with Atmos and DTSX, we've had dealers that have taken customers that had a traditional 7.1 or 5.1 system, and since you can put the Atmos speakers either, you know, in front of you, but above you, or right above you directly, or just behind you, they repurpose the surround speakers into Atmos, and then if they can put in walls or some other speaker behind them, they're able to take that customer that had that traditional type of system, give them Atmos, and then they get this, you know, whole other experience that they didn't have otherwise, and just by upgrading, adding new electronics, adding a couple of new speakers in the system. So you can really demonstrate it for a customer that went from a traditional system into an Atmos system.